Hello and welcome to this MiniVersity. As folks are joining, please do say hello in the chat box. Before we begin, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we bring on our special MiniVersity professor. So excited to have her here today. Say hello. Hi, Esther. Good to see you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yes, please keep joining and saying hello. And I'll get started with some housekeeping before we start our MiniVersity class. Hello, Princeton. Good to see you. Hey, Deb. Oklahoma. Great to see you. Oh my goodness. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining on this Sunday afternoon or whichever time you are joining from. It's so great to have you for this MiniVersity. If you don't know who I am Darren, and I am the owner of D. Thomas Miniatures, and I spend as much time as I can promoting this awesome world of miniatures of ours. And I do that a number of ways. I host a series called Meet the Miniaturist, and I also have this MiniVersity, which brings in folks to teach about miniatures. I just want to share my screen because I have a couple of things to go over before we bring over on our guests. So as I mentioned, I do promote miniatures every chance I get, but I also sell miniatures. So I have an estate sale coming up very soon, next weekend, actually. It's an eclectic mix of miniatures and tiny treasures. I do have a preview gallery that has gone up and it's live on my website. You can go and check that out. I will put links in the chat box to everything I'm talking about in a moment. But also what I have going on is my Meet the Miniaturist. I just had an awesome Meet the Miniaturist with a bunch of very, very talented miniaturists who are very, very adept at storytelling and bringing storytelling into their miniature worlds and their miniature creations. So check that out. Again, I'll put the link in a moment. I also the next MiniVersity course, 101, if you will, invites a wonderful small-scale knitting artist. Her name is Julie Steiner. She runs the awesome, ridiculously tiny things on Instagram. Again, I will put the link in so you can register for that. That's actually a Thursday night course, which is happening on April the 11th. Stay tuned for that. What else do we have going on? Okay, you're hearing it first here. I do have my 2024 miniature spring flower show happening. It's going to be in Brooklyn at a wonderful location in a florist, actually, shop. So stay tuned for details about that. That is an on-site, visiting gallery exhibition. Can't wait for that. Got almost 18 artists from all over the world participating in that flower show. It is going to be an awesome event with a open, and we're going to have a launch party on May 4th. So stay tuned for all of that information. And then finally, is it final? Yes, finally, I will be giving a talk at the Hudson River Museum on Mother's Day, and that's in Yonkers, New York. They have an extraordinary 24-room mini mansion in their permanent collection, and I am just so grateful to be connected with this museum, and they've invited me to come in and talk about this extraordinary dollhouse and talk about the story behind it and the maker who created it. So look for that. Again, I'll put the link into the museum. That's happening on Sunday, May 12th. And so with that, I will bring up our very special guest, which is Ann Pennypacker. I'm going to go ahead and ask her to start video. She's actually got 2 videos going. She's an expert in this, by the way, guys. She has been selling tools for the last 20 years. She has been a maker for longer than that. And she is what I call a mini tool enthusiast, but also an expert. And thank you for joining and being here. And so tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you got involved in miniatures, the transition over to tools, and then, of course, we're going to get some demonstrations and some tips on some of the tools that most of your followers and customers, you're going to just center around most of the questions that you get, the biggest questions. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that.
I've been enthralled with miniatures in 1974, and where I started making this room, and I took my father's old baseball cards and I cut them up and put them in over the mantle, and yeah, destroyed some baseball cards. So, which I've since replaced. And I started really seriously thinking about making, creating, and selling my items in '98. And I started with little, really frilly little things, hats, umbrellas, and a miniaturist, a seasoned veteran, pulled me inside and she said, find something that you really enjoy doing over and over again. Because if you don't enjoy doing it over and over again, that's not your thing.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I thought, is it not good? She said, oh, no, you do a very, very nice job. But I'm just telling you, you know, find something that you really love. And so I looked at what people had at their shows, and I saw a lot of beds and a lot of beautiful dolls and beautiful things. And I really love tools. And so that's where I realized that very few people supply the tools, supply the wood, supply the hinges that you need when you make something. And that is what started in 2004. AMiniThing got incorporated.
Right.
And so, yeah, we're in our 20th year now.
You know, will you just take a moment before we go into the actual tools and talk a little bit about the importance of tools and the right tools when starting a mini project, or even knowing if you're a collector and you're not a maker, knowing about the tools is important too, because then you know how something was made and how, you know, how precious an object might be. So talk a little bit about the importance of tools and using the right tool for a project.
The right tool is critical. I mean, you wouldn't pick up your pair of tweezers and use it as a screwdriver. No, don't do that. I can tell people who bring a screwdriver to me or a tweezer and say that they haven't used it as a screwdriver, but it really was. So everybody needs some kind of a tool, and even a collector who needs to put a little knickknack up onto their shelf, they need tweezers if it's in the fireplace. You know, if you're looking at the kitchen and you've got a little can that fell over because you didn't put enough wax or a stick on there, you can take your tweezer and you can go into the back without upsetting the rest of the room and upright that can.
Right. Yeah,
That's
I think that's a really good point, in that if you might not be a maker, but there are some tools that you should use or can use to make your life easier, even as a collector.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
You know, nice pair of magnifying glasses if you need them. Some people don't, and then you can see the signature on that painting that you bought. That's a tool. So,
no, that's a really great point. So I want to just welcome some folks who might have just joined and let them know that we're about to get started on this mini course. And just folks, please feel free to use the chat box. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. There's a lot to cover. I mean, I know we talked a little bit about just covering maybe five tools, but you know, let's try to get to as much as we can. We'll try to get to the chat box, and then of course at the end, if there's time, maybe we'll be able to take some questions. How's that sound?
Awesome.
Thank you. Okay, let's go.
Awesome. So I sell the 3 different levels. You've got intermediate or entry level, and there's nothing wrong with having the entry level, because it's your new tool that you have to work with, and you're going to have to practice. These tools don't just automatically, you don't get great at it without practice. And we'll use the jeweler saw as an example. This takes a lot of practice. Just to put the blade in, you need to do it a couple of times. And this is a jeweler saw. It's adjustable, and it comes in different throat widths. This is a coping saw. Coping saws do not get adjusted, and they have a T-pin for the blade. So it sits on a little pin at the top and the bottom, and that holds it in. You can use this to cut wood or metal or plastic. This takes a really nice fine blade, and there's no pin involved. It's held together with clamps. The #1 complaint that I get, or comment or frustration that I get with a jeweler saw is the blade is upside down and they don't know how to tell the difference. It's not cutting. I don't know what happened. The blade has to be, and there's little tiny teeth on here. This is a number 4, nice 4 blade. When you're cutting, the act of going down on the pin bench, that's what's making the cut. All of the teeth are pointing down. They're not cutting on the up. So are you able to see the...
If you could lift it a little higher.
Okay.
And just FYI, we were able to get that other video going if you want. It's there if you want to start that video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. So it's important that your teeth are pointing down, and by checking it, you just want to touch. You don't want to rub your finger up because you're going to cut yourself. These are really sharp blades, but you just want to touch the blade gently, and if it grabs your finger, that's your teeth grabbing that. If it's really nice and smooth, then your blade is facing in the teeth are facing in the wrong direction. And just like a sewing machine, the blade is going up and down. That means, and normally I would be sitting for this, but there's no room for my chair here. Your elbow is making the marks, not the hand. You're not doing this. You're not going sideways. It's nice and straight.
Okay, so actually, they're not, let me share that other screen. That's probably why they can't see it, so hold on. Okay, go ahead.
And then they're going to
now they
work around.
Yeah.
Nice and slow. Your hand is not gripping the blade, the handle with a death grip. It's nice and loose.
And can you describe what are some of the items that get made using a jeweler's saw?
Oh my goodness! You can make picture frame. You can make a seat. You can cut out your seat. If you're doing a chair and you need to cut out the pattern for the seat. If you want to use decorative trim on the sides of a staircase, on the stair treads, you can cut out corbels. If you had a specific design that you wanted for your corbels, you could make that out of, you can also do it out of the make banister. You can do it with metal. You can do, there's a lot of different ways you can use the jeweler saw. This is a raised pin bench. You can also get a tabletop pin bench. Nothing wrong with it. You just need to be able to use it, and it would be flush with the table. And the reason why you would want, the reason why you would need that is just for space reasons. You don't have to have a raised pin bench, and I'll move this out so maybe you can see it more. And it works just the same.
I have to say, I have used the jeweler saw. It is not an easy tool. It is not a beginner's tool. Would you agree?
I do believe that it is correct. You do have to practice with all of these tools. You're not just going to get it right off the bat. And if you do, then the next time you might need to practice even more. It's a skill, and skills require practice.
Yeah. But what is the payoff of using a jeweler saw?
Oh, you can do wonderful work. If you had a beautiful design and you wanted to do filigree work inside of it, if you're going to casting and you're taking a metal smithing class and you're going to be carving or cutting out the inside to make stained glass. There's just amazing things that you can do with it. Like I use this for I had little wicker seats. I did a desserts and demo at the Guild show one year, and I used the jeweler's saw to cut out all of my seats. And because it was saving me time, I could take it with me, do it in a hotel room, or I could do it on my workbench.
Yeah.
And I didn't need power tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that it, you know, having used it, it's an awesome tool, but to your point, it requires practice and, you know, some skills, some movement of the hand. I mean, just replacing those blades.
The
I need a
blade,
class. I need a class for.
and the blade can be replaced once you learn how to do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. This is my favorite way. And then I just use the whole of the pin bench. That's all I'm doing. Some people use it. Some people do it with the blade going into their stomach, or the handle going into their stomach, and then they
Yes.
punch gut themselves. And it's just, it's uncomfortable. So what I'll do is I line it up with my little vise, because at the top is a vise. And when you press, the blade is going in a bend.
Mm-hmm.
So I open that up. And I press down, I'm pressing down. And now it's straight, but that's not a happy sound. That's still, I can move that. When you can move your blade in its tight, that's not the sound that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then
there you go. Nice.
That's
See, that's a
nice
skill,
sound.
ladies and gentlemen. Nice. So I just wanted, what I didn't mention when we started is that you will be showcasing your assortment of tools at the upcoming Chicago Tom Bishop show, correct?
Yes.
And that's really where most of you get to see your customers one-on-one, and that's where these questions come. That's really where these questions come. Do you do any demonstrations at your table? I know you're usually very, very busy.
I am. Yes, more very busy, that I don't always get to all the questions. I don't have time to demo, but I am at any given moment giving a verbal demonstration on a saw blade. And people have questions and, well, what's the best saw blade to get? Well, that depends on what you're cutting. And we go by teeth per inch, TPI. And so when you're looking at a saw blade, if it's a 24 TPI, teeth per inch, that's going to cut a lot rougher. You're going to have a lot of feathers on your wood than if you were to choose a 54 tooth per inch. That has 54 teeth in each inch. Gives a much smoother finish.
I didn't
One
know.
person will say, well, now, how come there's two different lengths? Can I use them on both? I mean, what do I do? It's not going to fit into my miter box. Well, my number one thing, that when you're buying a miter box, and it doesn't matter if it's Zona or Excel or Pro Edge, it just doesn't matter. It's an aluminum miter box. Zona makes a really nice one as well.
Well, so those are the different brand names. I'm sorry. Could you repeat
those? Yes, we have Excel, which is EXCEL. And we also have Zona, ZONA.
Okay.
We also, and there's Pro Edge, but Pro Edge is, I don't carry Pro Edge right now. They're the same thing. So I chose one, and Excel has a better name. So I chose that one. And it's an aluminum, so it doesn't take a whole lot of weight. Doesn't take a lot of room in your suitcase or carry-on. That's not going to make or break you. The secret to prolonging your blades and your miter box is you take a little scrap piece of wood. It doesn't have to be 3/8 of an inch, but these are from my junk pile. And you're going to put it into the bottom of your miter box. And so when you're cutting, through your piece of wood, your project, the blade, when you go through the project, the picture frame that you're cutting, it's going to go into the wood and not into the metal, because the metal is going to rip the teeth right off. It's going to wear out your blade so much faster. And let's talk about the little edge on your miter box. You notice it's not completely flat, and there's a reason for that. It's designed to go up against either, this just happens to work for this cutting mat. It can also go right up against the edge of your table, and it helps secure, so you're not chasing it all over the place while you're trying to cut.
Ah, never knew.
I always fasten it down with just a couple pieces of tape, because I don't like things moving while I'm trying to cut. It's just a little something. And then you're going to choose your degree. And for right now, this is picture frame. My left hand, because I am right-handed, my left hand is going to be holding the wood up against, not in a death grip, doesn't require a death grip, right up against the back part. My left finger is holding it in place. It acts as a clamp. And then it's just nice and soft. Let the blade do the cutting, not brute strength.
So that's what you mean by not a death grip.
Not a death grip. Nothing about this has to have a death grip.
Let the blade do the work. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let the blade cut. It's gonna cut. And it's a nice, straight, smooth. Don't do this. Don't do that. Just keep it nice and straight and up and down. And it's going to, and if you ever want to know, how is it cutting? Is it cutting on the push? This is a pull saw. So when you pull, you're feeling the teeth. The teeth are cutting the wood on the pull. So it's a pull saw.
Oh, because I just assumed you back and forth and it's both cutting. So that's actually really great learning for me. So it's really only one of the directions that's doing the cutting.
Yes.
It's not
yes.
like, oh, wow.
So
big light
when you have a small blade like this, these are wonderful little blades. Don't be turned off by them, especially if they have the teeth per inch that you're looking for, because then you can always put in more wood. You can put in a larger piece of wood and use that instead. And that you'll be able to see, I have just a little bit, I have a little clearance to cut my piece of wood. So that is the question, that how do you use the miter box? Do I need a miter box or do I need the cutter? Now,
are we transitioning to the third tool?
There are 3 sizes of cutters, and we have the Ultimate. The Ultimate has a miter on it, miter angle on it. And when it locks and when you open it, you can cut your picture frame, you can cut your baseboard, you can do all your cutting. However, it compresses the wood. So it's really, really nice if you have a very thin piece of wood that you need to cut. This is about 1/16 of an inch. And you're just going to put it right up against your guide. So all that it's snipped right down like a pair of scissors. You've got a minimal amount that you can sand off. But if you go thicker, you're going to have, it's going to compress the wood. And it's going to get really, let's do this one.
Yeah, I find that it eats up the wood a lot.
It does, and it crushes the wood.
How do you avoid that?
By using a miter box.
Oh, so if the wood is soft, use the miter box? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying the wood is soft. I'm saying if it's thick, then you want to use the miter box. The miter box beats the chopper any day. This is convenient. And if it's just flat wood and you're putting in hardwood floor and you're just cutting, repeatedly cutting, because you can draw your marks right on here, your stop lines right on any one of these surfaces. In fact, I have cut them right there. You can use these. They fit in your toolbox. There's one tool as opposed to two tools, the box and the saw, but it also cuts at an angle. So you have to be prepared to sand. At any time, you have to be prepared to sand. There is standing involved. I know people don't like to hear that, but it does. A nice sharp blade will cut a very nice edge, but when you get thick wood, it's run the risk of compressing the wood, and then you've ruined that piece. Right. You'll have to go back and start over again.
Yeah, no, that's awesome advice. Does anybody have any questions about any of the tools we've seen so far? So the miter box we saw the cutter, and we saw the jeweler's saw, which is amazing. Those are that's an amazing selection of tools right there. And would you say those are sort of like the basics? Are those sort of the basics?
They are the basics. I mean, the miter box you can get. We have a couple of people who really like this product by Midwest. It's plastic, and the whole point is you put your work in, and then these pegs will hold the work down.
Oh.
I think I have opinions on this because I think that you will learn more and you'll get better. This is a beginner step. You're still not going to cut yourself. I think this is less threatening than this.
Yeah.
But you're still not going to cut yourself if you watch where your fingers are. These pegs don't hold the wood quite as well. And people may argue with me, but these pegs, they're plastic, but they may not hold the wood as well as having it on a work surface.
Like a tricycle of miter boxes.
Yes. Without saying it.
So we have a couple of questions, and it's a lot of questions about sharpening the blades. Can you talk about that? How often and how?
Of these, you can't buy the replacement blades anymore. So what you can do though is you can take the screw out, and I don't know, let me see you take this screw out and this bolt comes out. This blade will then be able to be slid out, and you can either sharpen it yourself with a honing knife or a honing stone, or you can take it to a sharpener, somebody who will sharpen it for you.
Yeah.
And you can, and then you put it back in, and then you'll have a nice sharp blade, and that will go with any one of the three.
Do you have the handles for the saw? Do those come separate? Somebody wants to know if they could buy the handle.
Not of these.
No. Okay.
No, it comes complete with this. Are you talking about the
jeweler's saw? Oh, I don't know. I think they're talking about
these come as is. I mean, these, you can buy them in sets. This is a number 5 blade knife holder, and you can use a razor with it. You can use one of these great pull saws with it.
That's a big learning. Cool.
You can put in a heavy duty knife blade in there, and you can do it's a very strong handle. If you're into gourds, if you're cutting foam insulation, you can use that for sawing through it. Then you've got this number 2 knife, and the number 2 is a little bit lower than the heavy duty, but it's still a heavy handle.
That's an X-Acto blade on steroids? Let me see. I don't think I've ever seen that. Wow. So
yeah. This is a real nice blade. It was in there because I was preparing to cut styrofoam for insulation in behind a fake wall.
Wow.
So the customer wanted a deep windowsill, and instead of just having things rattling around in there, I put in that. I also have been known to take these blades, and I've cut pumpkins for Halloween.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
So it's very nice. Now, this is the number 1 blade. number one knife blade, and it takes number 11 and number 21 blade. There's other blades that you can get in there, but this is the most popular knife. And the reason why it's just because it's nice and lightweight. It's cheap enough, and it's what you need for classes. It's an entry level. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what your skill level, you still need to learn how to use it and to be safe about it. The one thing, though, about this is if you are right-handed, you'll notice that this is a curl. And when you go, and we all know that saying, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
Yes.
Remember? Okay. So when your hand is on here and my knuckle, my first knuckle is on there, sometimes you're doing some cutting. If you're right-handed, it won't be a problem. Your blade will stay intact. It will stay tight. But if you're left-handed, your knuckles still, depending on where you're going to hold the blade or hold the knife, your knuckle is going to rub against there. And that's on making it lefty-loosey. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And so people are finding, the left-handers are finding it difficult because their blades are coming loose. And that's another question. They come to me and say, I can't keep this knife blade in here. How am I doing that? Well, there are knives that have the curls in the back. So you don't have to worry about that. Mm. So the curl is right here at the bottom. You're adjusting the blade from the bottom. You're tightening it up. Hold on. And you're exchanging the blade.
Hold on, let me change the view so they could see that. Hold on. It's not letting me. Keep going, though.
That's okay. Yeah. So you can adjust it from the back, so it's not close to your hand. You're not loosening it. You're not tightening it as you're working. That's all. There's perfect. If it's rolling and you just don't want it to roll around, just get a rubber band.
There you go.
You don't need to buy a new knife. Yeah, it's shooting myself in the foot somewhat, but talking them out of a sale. But to me, I'm a miniaturist. It's about the tools. It's about enjoying the experience of making something, of crafting, of using what you've got. And if this is perfectly acceptable, just put a rubber band around it, or go to one of the stores. You can buy those pencil grips, and you can put the pencil grip on. But then I'm also going to tell you, if you're telling me this, I'm also going to tell you, well, if your hand hurts holding on to this, you may be holding on too tight. Open up the grip a little bit. Relax. Are you breathing? If it's that, yeah. So if you're really stressed, and because you're really, white knuckling it, that might be a sign that you need to open up your hand a little bit and breathe.
Good advice. Very good.
So we talked about that. The next thing is, what the heck is this?
That's my favorite.
And I should have, it's everybody's favorite. This is a glue jig. And I've currently sold all of my big ones, my large glue jigs. So, but they come in 3 sizes. You've got the small, medium, and large. These are made by P and Pam Borum. And I do sell that for them. And these are just really handy. And as you could see, it doesn't matter what scale you are using, you are able to glue things. It will hold the work after you've cut your joints, your miters, and you're gluing it in place. It will hold that work so that you can go on and do another. or take a lunch or whatever you need to do, and it will hold that in place. These are really handy. If you get the larger size, you can do several projects all on one glue jig, as opposed to maybe you could get a little bit more on here, do another one at another angle. But yeah, it's a really handy one, and they are very, very popular.
Yeah, and you can't have them in, you have to have them in every size.
You do. I
Thing.
believe you do.
If you are tool obsessed like I am, you have to have that in every size, because undoubtedly there will be the really super tiny thing that you need to jig and hold in place, and then you have the larger item. So I can attest.
Yes, and the neat thing that I use this for is when I'm assembling 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch chairs. You don't have to use it straight on the flat. You can put it up on its side so you have the back. This is aluminum to help cut down on some of the weight. So the magnet doesn't stick to this, doesn't attract to the back plates and the sides, but it will also help you keep everything level and square.
You know, that's new learning for me too, is using that on an angle so that it keeps everything squared upright.
Yes,
And it's
yes, you can.
exploding.
So yeah, that's no reason why you can't play with your tools.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. That is awesome.
So if you have a really large piece, or why not use it?
There's that metal piece as well, that metal glue jig. What do you think of that? The really heavy
Is
one.
it the really big, heavy one, not this? Okay.
Yeah, not the little ones.
That has a purpose. They are really good. However, you want to get them the really nice one, the heavy one, because you want that metal to be nice and heavy. Over time, I don't know how it does it, but it warps and it will pop,
really?
and then it wobbles. And you don't want anything wobbling on your work surface. That's not a good thing at all.
No, that's crazy.
So, but they have an open end, and some people freak out over that open end. And the open end is designed for if you have a piece of wood, it has some place to go. So you want that open end, and so you can use it. Makes it more valuable.
I've never used that open end. I'm gonna have to find a reason to.
Maybe a chair arm or something on that.
So let's see, do we have any other questions on any of the tools so far? I love how everybody's chatting with everybody. They're just so engaged.
Oh, good.
Amazing. Wow. Awesome. You can put the blades in a soda can. Oh, that's a good question. Barbara has a advice on putting the, what do you do with the blades afterwards? Put them in a soda can. That's a great tip.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You
Someone
can
actually
also
asked before about how often to change the blade. And there were questions about both the jeweler saw blade as well as the X-Acto blade. So maybe address both.
Okay. When you are using your X-Acto, and it doesn't matter what kind of X-Acto it is, it doesn't matter. You need to change that blade a lot more than you think you are. I've gone into classes where the instructor immediately, and I happen to be one of those instructors who immediately say, everyone take the blade out of your knife and put a fresh one in, because they'll think, well, I used this yesterday. I just changed the blade yesterday. But what did you cut in the meantime? Were you cutting out wallpaper out of window openings with glue on it? Then change your blade. Were you cutting some wood? Even if it's real thin strip wood, were you making a filigree? Then change your blade. So when you are able to put your hand on your blade, and we're not talking any strength, everything is gentle. This is my thought. Better yet, taking a piece of paper and just resting it on there, and I just lightly drew the blade over.
And
I didn't cut anything. Now it's time to change the blade.
Oh, can you repeat that? So that was a little test to see?
Yeah, and that's a great test. I just rest the whole blade from the tip to the back right on the paper, and I just draw down, not pushing hard at all, just lightly pushing it down, and I can hear it going down.
And that
And
means what?
then
That means and if
it's
it cuts, it's good?
I didn't cut anything. That means that this blade is dull and it needs
Oh,
to get changed.
right. Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, is it just good practice, like to the point of the teacher starting? Just every time you start a new project, just put a new blade
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not that costly. When you buy them in bulk, they're not that costly. And for those who really want, some people really enjoy sharpening, honing stones. You are able to, you can do it. It takes a long time. And if you're not into it that heavy, then I would just change the blade.
Just change the blade. I mean, I
Just
think that's
change your
good
blade.
advice. Just change the blade. You
Yeah,
just get in the habit of changing the
just
blade. It'll
change the
make your life
blade.
so much easier.
It does. And you'll notice, and your work will go down a lot quicker. You're going to be cutting out those window openings in the wallpaper much faster. You're not going to tear the edges of your wallpaper or your work, your graphics.
Yeah.
When you're putting more emphasis on the pull, and it's really, you hear that grind, change the blade.
Change the blade. Yeah. I
Just
mean,
change the blade.
I'm the worst offender. Either I'm too lazy to get up and do it, or I'm just like, oh, I can get one more cut out of it. But I think the advice is just change it.
Just change the blade.
Change the
That's
blade.
exactly what it is. Just change the blade. Um,
Do we want to tackle one more tool?
we can.
Yes.
All right. So I get customers coming to me and they say, I need my teacher, whatever, has asked me to get a ruler. Well, what kind of ruler? What are you going to be using? Are you in American Standard measurements or are you going to be in metric? Are you going to be doing, everything can be an entry level, but are you going to want to take this tool? Because your tools are your investment. And if you get a moderately priced, moderate level tool, you can go and do great things years down the road with this. This is the machinist ruler, 6-inch machinist ruler. And the reason that this is my favorite ruler, because there's 4 sides and each side has a useful measurement. You've got the 1/16 measurement, 1/8. You flip it over. You've got 1/32, and you got 1/64. This will take you right up, and you can use this from any workshops that you've got or kit assembly. You can take this right up to the guild school with you and use that.
Can we just talk about how much better what is it called? A machinist's?
It's a machinist rule.
A machinist ruler. And it's perfect. If it's a 6-inch ruler, it's 6 inches. Why do they make rulers that are 12-inch plus? I don't understand.
I know the answer to that.
Why? Tell us. I mean,
okay, so
why?
A lot of folks are fussing because the rulers are bent on the ends and they don't have the measurement that goes right up to the edge. And it's because somebody had to make a rule because somebody got hit or slapped or scraped themselves on a sharp edge of a ruler. That's the number one thought. Now, the second one is over time, your ruler is going to get, if you're really using it heavy, and if it's not a stainless steel one, it's going to get rounded. Now you've compromised the actual ruler, the ruling part, the measurement part. You're shortening. So if you need that 1/16 of an inch, it's not 1/16 of an inch now because you've worn it down. You've rounded the corner. You've, maybe digging it around or just hanging out in a toolbox, toolkit will take that down. But now, in most situations, it doesn't become true. If you have a rounded corner with a recessed measurement starting, that is going to be your true measurement start.
Right.
And that's so just as much of a reason to have that as anything else.
Mm-hmm. Right. So ultimately you recommend which one do you recommend? I mean,
I recommend the machinist rule. I recommend that. It's not cork back. It's it's standard American measurements, and it's stainless steel, and it takes you from beginner to advanced. Because if you're doing kits, even if you're doing kits at home, you know, and it says take the 4 3/16 piece of wood. Well, you have to measure that. What is 4 3/16? 4 inches and 3/16. Well, it's going to tell you. You're going to count out 3/16 right on there. You don't have to. The markings are in black. It stands out better. I don't have to put on my glasses to, you know, my fine glasses to read the ruler. It has the measurements. It stands right on there so that you can read it. It's a nicer, easier ruler.
We did get a question about cork backs, because some of them have the cork back, some of them don't. I prefer working with the cork back, but you have a position on that?
There are some people who don't like cork back because their cutting is off. And I'll tell you why the cutting is off. So let me get my piece of paper. So when you're at your stand and you're measuring, you're lining it up to cut.
Oh, wait, can you go back to the jeweler's saw? Because that's, perfect.
Okay. Use this one. So when I'm standing there, and I'm always standing when you're cutting. Don't sit. It skews your results.
That's a great point.
Okay. You're going to do out your measurements, and I use a cutting mat. And the cutting mat is a self-healing cutting mat. And I use the lines, if that's what is necessary, or the pattern, whatever's on your paper. And I'm lining it up. And then, now this is a cork back ruler. It's not supposed to slide, but I find that it does. And you're going to take your blade, and you're not going to be sitting. Your blade never, let's see if I can, no, okay. Your blade never goes under or on its side under your ruler. It always goes right next to. So you take your blade and you go it right next to it. And your ruler is actually holding the blade in place. The ruler is right next to it. The blade rests on the ruler's edge.
That's great advice.
Don't think you're cutting in one pass. You're always going to be cutting in several passes. Now it's clear it's went right through, but you're going to pass as many times as necessary. Don't move the ruler in your hand until you're sure. Test your work and make sure that it came out, because as soon as you move that, you're not going to get that measurement back. Right? You don't have that true edge anymore. If you're sitting and you're in front of the work or off to the side, to the right of the work, your ruler, or your knife is going to go underneath the edge of the blade of your ruler. And you're not going to have a true cut. It won't be a true cut at all. But if you're standing off, and for me, I stand behind the work and slightly to the left, so that my right hand is down on the work, and the blade goes right up next to the ruler, so that it always has the ruler to track.
I mean, I think, these seem so basic, but I think at the end of the day, they're so critical to, success in a project. Would you agree?
Yes, it makes or breaks your project. If you're in a class and you need to cut out a sheet of paper to that particular measurement, you need to do that, or you're going to be doing it and your whole project could be off. And cattywampus, and you don't want that. You've spent money on the product, you've spent money at the class, and you might not be getting another piece of paper or another piece of whatever it is you're cutting to do that, to practice with.
No, that's great. All right, so why don't we take some more questions? Does anybody have any specific questions about a specific tool that might relate to a specific project you're working on? Because I know I promised that in the the synopsis of this class, we did get one question about best blade for cutting into foam core. That's a good question.
That is good. Foam core. All right. I would take a number 2 knife, which is your heavier, not the heaviest knife handle, and I would use a number 2 blade, which is it looks just like the number 1 blade, only it's a heavier blade, and it is designed for heavier cutting. The number 11 is a lightweight blade. It's great for paper. It can do
the number 2 blade, you would say.
It's a number 2 blade, and it's just slightly bigger. The throat of it is a little bit bigger.
And the 2 is the most popular anyway, right?
No, 1 is the most popular.
1 is the most popular.
Yes.
And 1, so can you talk a little about that? So 1 is more for paper, and then as you get heavier, the number goes up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because then if you're going to be cutting even heavier than foam core, if you're cutting gator board is really, ideally it goes really nicely, cuts like butter on a machine, on a table saw, but most folks don't have a table saw. So if they're cutting foam core or gator board, which is veneered foam, you're going to be really using, because you don't want your blades to snap, ruin the project. But a number 2 will do the work. A number 2 will do the work, and it looks just like the number 1 blade. However, it is a stronger blade.
Stronger. Okay, that's great. All right, let's take a couple more. They're just coming in fast and furiously. Do you have a favorite size of sandpaper? I mean,
yes.
We could do a whole class on sandpaper. So talk a little bit about sandpaper, and do you have a favorite? I don't know. Just go for it.
320.
Really? 320? Why 320?
320 is moderate. It's right in the middle. I'm not aggressive with my sanding. If I need more, if I'm really taking off a lot, I'll go with a file instead of, I would do that instead of going down to an 80 grit, because 80 grit is really creating the dust. Does.
What is a traditional emery board? What is that?
I think that is 80 on one side and 120, 180 on the second side. But then now mitering or the emery boards, they have really nice emery boards now where it's 320 and 400, but they're more buffing.
All right. Wow.
So
all right,
those are really nice.
2 more questions, and then we should have to let Ann go. What is the name of the tiny manual screwdriver? I don't know what that means. What is the name of the tiny manual screwdriver? I don't know. What is the name of it? Is there a special name?
A screwdriver? Is it electric? Is it?
I don't know. If you can expand on that, Mickey. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about tweezers. Do you have a favorite tweezer, and maybe go through the differences between the curved straight? What they might be used for different?
Yeah. Tweezers, anybody can just buy them online. But when you're at a place where you can actually feel and touch and squeeze, it has a lot to do with your hand and how it works with your hand. Is it light? Does it close easily without very much stretch? You don't want to be wearing the glove, that carpal tunnel glove, or get hand strain because you have tweezers that are really hard and to keep closed. And there's so many tweezers out there. At one time, I sold 25 different types of tweezer. 25. And now we're not up to 25 anymore because it wasn't necessary. You want to be able to see, do you want a precision tip? Let's see. Yeah. Do you want a precision tip?
Let me turn that
where it comes down to a very fine point. And these don't require very much closing effort to close and open at all. And these are called a diamond tip. There's also tweezers are, they have smooth jaws where there's no grip to them at all. There's some that are meshed inside, and these are another diamond tip, so that they're used for not marring any work. So if you're picking up a bead, a glass bead, maybe it has a finish on it, a frosted finish on it. You don't want to mar that finish because it's a Christmas ornament or something. You are able to grab it. It's got a nice fine point, and it's a very nice closing. It doesn't require a lot of effort at all.
Wow. I didn't know that.
There's watchmaker tweezers, and they're designed, they just have this point. These are angular. And everybody has their favorite, but this one, again, has a little bit of a pull to them. You have to work a little bit too. Yeah. And if you don't have any wrist problems or hand problems, you wouldn't have a problem with these. But there are some I recommend, and when you're at a shop with me, you are encouraged to hold them and to squeeze them. I open up your package for you, and I want you to be comfortable with them. It's like a pair of shoes.
Yeah, that's new information for me. So there could be two different kinds of tweezers, but you have to see what works best for you and your level of movement and power in your hand. Like, I always thought I just like to have a bunch of tweezers, but now I know, because I always go to the same one. I always go back to the same one because it's just,
you have a favorite.
It's the most comfortable.
Yes,
I never knew why.
Favorite.
I mean, the short,
and because it's the most. Yeah, it's the most comfortable for you, right. And it's what is comfortable for you, because you're handling it over and over and over again, and you need to be able to be comfortable, and it shouldn't be a stress. You shouldn't be able to, like, if I wanted to have that close.
Yeah. That's just amazing. I could spend days and days and days with you.
I can too.
This is just incredible. But yeah. I don't want to keep you anymore. I want to thank you for joining us today and taking us through this tiny, tiny taste of the world of tools. We didn't even get the chance to talk about how much you've contributed to the world of miniatures through the NAME organization and IGMA, and bringing the miniature school to the online community. So thank you for that. Folks, we can see you. The next time we can see you is in Chicago, correct?
I'll be at Chicago and Philadelphia and IGMA show.
So if you want to talk directly to you, see you at a show, but also notice I put in the chat box all of the links, including the link to your Etsy site, correct? So
thank you.
Folks can find you on Etsy to purchase a tool. Again, I could spend days with you. Thank you so much for joining. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you everyone at home for joining. This has just been an awesome MiniVersity. Have a great rest of your Sunday, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.